Tim Hagle, Associate Professor of Political Science at the University of Iowa. Good to see you, Tim. Thanks for taking time to chat with us.
To be with you.
I want to start by talking about Trump's array of executive orders. We're really, in large part, in uncharted territory, and critics saying that Trump is simply bypassing our government system of checks and balances by sidestepping the legislative branch. And I saw earlier you were quoted as saying it's going to take some time for these executive orders to take effect. I presume from legal challenges and whatnot. But a lot of people are arguing that the chaos is here now. USAID, the FBI, the IRS, I could go on and on. Could you elaborate a little bit about your thoughts?
Well, as far as the executive orders are concerned, everybody's making a lot of talk about or having a lot of discussions about the executive orders, how many there are, how fast they're moving, and so forth. And it's certainly true that Trump, having been president before, having time off to think about all this, when he came in this time, he knew what he wanted to do and he was ready to do it. But in terms of issuing the executive orders, other presidents had done so as well, maybe not quite as many, quite as quickly. Again, Trump probably was very prepared to do this when he regained office. But it's been a question for some time as to the extent to which presidents can do this and whether it's, in fact, usurping the powers of the legislature or not. And in fact, there have been many concerns for many years that legislatures, Congress in particular, has basically given its power to the president, that for whatever reason, Congress hasn't really been willing to exercise its own powers and sort of ceded that to the presidency. Yeah. Well, the president, whether it's Obama or Biden or whatever, has basically used that authority.
Tim, I would argue what you're saying in the past is dramatically different than what we're seeing now. It's not even the same ballgame. You're talking about someone who is simply changing the face of federal government.
Well, I suppose it depends on your point of view in terms of changing these sorts of things, because certainly in the past, whether it's, again, Obama or Biden, some of the things that they did, some of the executive actions that they took, made people very upset in the other party. And so that's really what you have a lot of going on here, is that the other party often doesn't like whatever the current president is doing, so they get very unhappy with it. But there's no, certainly I wouldn't contest the idea that Trump is moving very quickly. And as apparently some of the tech folks say, it's you want to move fast and break things. But of course, that means you may have to fix them again later. But again, as you alluded to my previous comments, that basically some of this stuff is going to be put on pause because of the court cases.
Okay. And now, as you mentioned, Trump won the narrow victory in the popular vote. So presumably, a chunk of the United States population, MAGA, is cheering what's going on. When will we know if this works or if Trump's plans are going to be a colossal failure?
Well, that's a good question, because we have to see how far they're going to go. That right now they're sort of getting their feet wet. They're trying to see what they can do in terms of, particularly with DOGE and trying to cut spending and things of that nature. But as pretty much everybody recognizes on the left or the right, that to really rein in spending, you're going to have to go after some of the big ticket items. And that means maybe fixing Social Security so it doesn't go bankrupt. Dealing with Medicare, Medicaid, things of that nature, not to mention defense, which usually Republicans like Democrats may be willing to cut spending there. So we have to see how some of this shakes out. But sort of what's going on now is they're getting some of the fringe things, and they should be looked at too, and see whether the spending is something where it can be trimmed. And maybe that can go to some sort of rebate to the voters, or maybe it can go to pay down the debt, something of that nature. But right now we're sort of in that phase where Trump is exercising the powers that he thinks he has, and we'll have to see if ultimately the courts agree.
Indeed. Okay, Tim Hagle, can't thank you enough for your time. We appreciate it.
Very welcome.